Hello and welcome to the Source One podcast. Consider us your source for the latest procurement, supply management, and strategic sourcing insights. Anytime, anywhere.
Hey everybody, this is Bennett Glaze. I'm here with Jennifer Ulrich, Source One's Procurement Transformation Practice Lead, and we're talking about Source One's recent white paper series, Procurement Transformation Industry Perspectives. How's it going, Jen?
Hey Bennett, how are you doing today?
Not too bad. Series is finally over. How's it feel?
Very good. I'm very, very proud of the work that Source One and our partners did on this white paper series. I hope that the readers have appreciated it as much as we've enjoyed writing it.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, although I must say it was a big part of my life for the last month and a half, and it's sort of
probably the best part.
I guess to rewind a little bit, what was your inspiration for starting this series?
Sure. So over the years of working in procurement transformation, I, of course, have read probably dozens upon dozens of white papers and articles on the topic myself. And it's always been something that I wanted to be able to produce some really thought-provoking content from our point of view. But what I was finding was that the concept of transformation has been sort of done to death in white papers, right? So how could we do it in a new sort of innovative way that would intrigue readers? But at the same time, we have some really fantastic partners that we work with in a lot of different ways here at Source One. And I was kind of looking for another avenue to engage them as well. And this sort of just became that perfect sort of collaboration to both produce a white paper with a new way of going about it, as well as being able to engage our partner network from this standpoint.
Yeah, and a cool thing about the way that we elected to do it is, doing it in a 5-part series like that, it allows you to communicate the breadth of the topic while also getting narrow. I find that a lot of the stuff I've read about procurement transformation, it's either way too narrow in scope or it's really, really broad and not really saying much of anything about what transformation actually means. I mean, would you say that you were hoping to challenge some traditional ideas or some traditional conversations around procurement transformation with the series?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons that we started the white paper series with that sort of historical approach, right? With a look back at where it's come from and where it's going, so that we could really push that conversation forward to say, I know this is how it's been done, but this is how it's going to be done in the future.
Yeah, I especially enjoyed actually talking to Jim about the history of procurement transformation. He had a lot of recommendations for books to read on the topic, and I was slightly disappointed when I went on Amazon and found out that they were like $85-$90.
Isn't that crazy? It's crazy what people charge for books these days.
What besides the price of certain academic texts surprised you about the series? Were there perspective or angles that you hadn't previously considered?
Absolutely. And again, we've had conversations with our partners on these topics sort of more at a high level before, but really being able to sit in on some of these interviews and read some of their thoughts in more of an in-depth way was very educational for me to understand the different perspectives. Now, you go into things like, for example, with Christian and Jagger, and you think he's going to talk about pushing tools and technology because that's what he does for a living. So to get a slightly different perspective on that's not the only game in town, that's not the only way to go about it, it was really interesting to me to hear that they look at things just as holistically as we do, even though they have a much more niche focus.
Yeah, it was certainly eye-opening to see someone whose job is ostensibly to sell solutions telling readers, like, hey, hold your horses on buying solutions.
Right. You get nervous, when I spoke at Jagger Rev, and that was kind of the conversation I had when I'm at a technology conference saying, slow down when you're buying technology and you're worried, am I going to get some looks from that? Right.
And I thought the process that we chose for putting this together was, it was certainly for me a nice way to continue kind of getting my feet wet as someone who's fairly new in marketing this sort of stuff, having these conversations with our partners and having that be the creative process. I mean, you sat in on some of those conversations, but would you say that was an enjoyable experience? I mean, I certainly thought so.
Yes, absolutely. Again, I think I had the opportunity to engage with our partners in a new way and see where they're going with their businesses in relation to procurement transformation, because it impacts so many different parts of the organization outside of just procurement, and we had that visibility. So we have, that IT perspective, the risk internal audit type of perspective, the analytics perspective. So getting all those different elements that we're always telling people it's not a siloed approach. This is just more of a way to demonstrate that thought process.
Mm-hmm. And I think another cool thing about the series too is, and we talked about this particularly with Phil Eidson and Joe, the notion of transformation can be kind of a terrifying one. I mean, it's a big, especially when it's capital T, transformation, it's sort of a big word, and it connotes like, tossing everything out. I think one of the cool things we're doing with the series is sort of demystifying the idea, making it seem like something that your organization is capable of, whatever maturity level you're at, so long as you take the necessary steps and, find the right pace.
Right.
What would you say was your inspiration for organizing this as a series first, rather than an ebook right out of the gate?
Sure. So I think in our society today, people are just really more adapting to micro-learning concepts, right? We see that a lot in our training practice, that people don't want to sit down for an 8-hour class and be talked at for hours about something. It's not effective. People don't learn that way, especially, like I said, especially today. So to approach the white paper series with that same mindset just made sense. So let's take it in little pieces, little bites at a time, let them digest it, and then come back for more. Also breaking it up into more of a story, too, was helpful to get people to understand, okay, here's where it starts, and then let's take each component of it, and then here's where it's going. And I think it made it more impactful, because even for me, when I open up a white paper and I see that it's 40, 50 pages long, I'm going to skim through it for the pieces that I want to read. I'm not going to sit down and read the entire thing. So I don't want to put that on my readers, just like I wouldn't want that put on me.
It's like the difference between binge watching a TV show versus forming that week in, week out relationship.
Exactly.
We gave people a little bit of both.
Right.
There's a time and a place for both, I guess. And how would you rate the success of the series? Has it begun to produce some of the results you were expecting?
Sure. So I think with something like this, really it's about planting the seeds. It's about getting the information and the content out there, getting people to start to understand our thoughts around this and see what it can really mean to them. When we put content like this out there in a white paper format, I don't expect to all of a sudden get 50 calls tomorrow around wanting to hire us, and that's perfectly okay. Really, my intent with producing this content is really about that knowledge share and getting people to understand what transformation is, and as you mentioned, making it a less scary topic for them. So, I want to really see how it impacts the environment more long term.
Yeah, it's definitely evergreen content, which is a plus. I think we could see this, years down the road, still getting some traction, some eyeballs. So obviously this was a pretty comprehensive look at the topic, maybe as comprehensive a look at the topic as has ever been published. But you suggest in your final installment that the discussion is far from over. This might be sort of a tough question, but how do you expect the conversation around procurement transformation to change in the coming years?
Sure. I think that it's going to continue to evolve. So one of the big elements that drives the transformation is the technology. Because technology is moving so rapidly in the environment, people are finally starting to see that procurement needs to catch up to not just the technology, but the rest of the organization. Well, eventually they're going to do that. Right. But that doesn't mean it ends. It's a continuous cycle of improvement. It's going to be looking at this every few years to say, have we been successful in what we were trying to achieve? How can we make sure that we're keeping that momentum and keeping up with the needs of the business? And if you want to keep up with the needs of marketing, you need to know what's going on in marketing. And that's going to impact your processes. That's going to impact your people, your category managers, the training. So it's just going to continue to evolve as the rest of the business environment evolves, essentially.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'm interested to see, as these technologies make transformation a more accessible idea, if we'll see, companies with newer and newer procurement departments or smaller and smaller procurement departments getting really involved in making them a strategic decision maker. And what is next for procurement transformation at Source One? How do you see the service offering evolving?
Sure. So I think, we're really starting to branch out a lot with our new tech advisory practice and creating that sort of dotted line there as to there's more that we can do than just coming in and assessing and training your people, right? Delving into more areas of risk, touching upon other areas of the business like internal audit, and anywhere where we can start to have a broader impact beyond procurement, because again, it's not such a siloed focus into the things that impact procurement impact the rest of the business. So we can help other parts of the business really develop those relationships with procurement, just like we would help procurement develop those relationships with the business units. So there's a lot that we can do, and it's just, our practice is still growing pretty rapidly, and I'm looking forward to what has to come in the next couple of years.
And I'm looking forward to collaborating on some more procurement transformation content.
I am as well.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
And be sure to read Procurement Transformation Industry Perspectives, now available as an ebook.
You've been listening to the Source One podcast. For more strategic sourcing and procurement insights every day, visit our blog, The Strategic Sorcerer. Want to provide feedback or suggest a topic for a future episode? Let us know at prrequest@sourceoneinc.com. Thanks for listening.